Alright, this is Semper 1918, and, well, here's a little interesting video that I guess I'm going to do today. A fellow co-worker of mine brought up a very, very, very good and interesting point. In fact, I'll throw this on Facebook too. He asked me a simple question. He said, how come it's only in the United States that you're classified as an American? Where, yeah, Mexico is part of North America, Canada is part of North America. Why aren't them classified as Americans? Or those in Central America or South America? Because you have, Africa. Well, sure, it doesn't matter if you're from Nigeria or Sudan, the Congo, or even South Africa, you're still African. Or in the Philippines, China, Japan, Malaysia, you're classified as Asian. Or if you're in, let's just say, Norway, Denmark, Great Britain, you're classified as what? European. And he's like, I don't want to misconceptuate or, make a missing on the mark, but doesn't that misrepresent who we are? I looked at him and I said, you are right 100%. By default, you are an American citizen nonetheless. Even being born in Mexico, you're an American citizen, whether it's North, South, or Central America. And I was like, so what do you think we should be really classifying ourselves? He says, looks at me, he says, you know the answer. And I said, I think you're right. As being a U.S. or United States of American citizen. Or short, U.S. citizen. I say that to say this. Sure, we got a crisis on the border. We got issues down there. And him and I had a deep conversation about the drug cartels and all the crap that's down there. And yeah, there's a lot of innocent folks that get, slammed in between and have no choice. And I asked him another simple question. I said, so couldn't they just, stop at the border and say, hey, we're looking for amnesty? He says, well, there's a problem. How are they going to show that they're running from and not a part of? Once again, I was like, wow, that is a catch-22, ain't it? He's like, yes, that is a catch-22. And then I thought about it. I said, well, what do you think we could do to slow down the bad immigrants from coming through and continue having the good immigrants come through? He says, I've thought about it long and hard myself. And first of all, those that have already been here for 10, 20, 30 years, that have their families established and everything else, and granted they're not American citizens yet, well, citizens of the United States yet, there's a simple solution. Give them the amnesty. And he went further. He says, no, we should backtrack it, a couple of months to a year and say, now, from that particular point and back, we will look at it, and if you have a job, and if you've been, working your butt off, and you got the family established, and so on and so forth, we'll reward you with amnesty. But anybody else who comes in afterwards will have to be forced to go through the program. That way we can integrate those 11 million illegal Americans, whether they overstay the visas, to whatever the case is, as long as they're working citizens and they haven't caused any major issues like felonies or major crimes or anything like that. Now, I'm not talking about like DUIs or, stupid stuff like, what's another example? Speeding tickets or something stupid like that. No, it has to be something major like, stealing, murder, rape, all that kind of stuff. Which is a very, very good, valid point. Because then in that case, you're rewarding those who have been here, who want to do the right thing, but just don't know how about going about it. And I say that as well because I also have a friend of mine who now ex-husband, they only broke up because personal issues that had nothing to do with him being an immigrant or anything like that, but they got married, and I think they were married for about 10 years. Yeah, for about 10 years, and they got divorced. But, long story short, when he found out that he could possibly be getting deported, she calls me up. She's like, hey, what's going on? Trying to figure out what's going on with this. I don't know if you've heard anything with the politics and all that stuff. I said, I don't know, but, might be a good idea for him to make sure he's got the paperwork processed. She said, well, we've already tried a few times and it's fallen through. So I do understand that things do happen where it falls through the cracks and so on and so forth. But he is a hard worker, paid the bills, did what he could with paying taxes legally and all that stuff too. So you know what he did? He ended up going back to, I think it was either Honduras or Guatemala or one of those countries. Did the paperwork process that he needed to do to get back over here to take care of his wife at the time and kid. And I commend him for doing that. And that is a very, very hard thing to do. Because how many of us just simply have money to fly back home or fly to another country? Now, yes, do I have a girlfriend? Yeah, she is from the Philippines, and yes, we're going to have to go through the whole process ourselves, and it's going to go through a different process in a different way because we're going to get married and then get her over here. So that process is completely different. We're going to get somebody hired so that way they can help us out with the immigration and all that. But there again, I totally agree with my buddy, my co-worker. Which makes perfect sense. Yeah, I know we still need to do the border wall and all that stuff too, on top of it. But just because you build a fence doesn't mean that they're not trying to get in. Which also brings me to another point. We talked about the drug cartels and all that stuff that was in, in Mexico and down there, and how brutal it is. Some of them, they just have to do what they got to do in order to stay alive. And sometimes the drug cartels come in and tell them you have no choice but the X, Y, and Z. Or there have been cases where they bring in these, groups and they say, well, you either work for us or you're going to die. And so a lot of them choose death, and so they end up shooting, killing them, and burying them there. It's sad. But the problem with that too is, in a lot of cases, the government says that they're going to step in, but they kind of don't. And not only that, but the citizens there, again, in especially Mexico, they don't have the gun rights that we do. They're not forfeited the rights to say, hey, yeah, you can have an AR-15 or, this stuff to protect yourself. Oh, no. The only guns they're allowed to have, in most cases, is hunting rifles. Yeah, you try taking down protecting yourself from the drug cartel with a rifle like that, where they have an M16 or, well, not M16, but AR-15s and machine guns and all kinds of stuff. know it's kind of gruesome talking about that a little bit. That's another one too. Not just drug trafficking. He also told me that what they'll do now is they will literally, for some of the mules, they will literally take children, kill them, take out their guts, fill them up with the cocaine or drugs, bring them across the border, say, oh yeah, this is my kid, this is my kid. They get across the border, and then they dispose of the body. Now that's a hard, chilling, cold fact. I was like, are you serious? He's like, absolutely. And why should I not believe him? He told me about a lot of his friends that he grew up with, and most of them are dead, gone, or buried. Because they chose to go for the drug life because, well, as kids, well, they got the money to buy stuff. And unfortunately, because of that, they didn't see that hard work pays off. Which is sad. I know it's not just Mexico or, Colombia and places like that it happens. It really is unfortunate. But another one too is they'll steal kids to turn them into sex traffickers. And use them as sex slaves. It's horrible. It's grotesque. It's nasty. And it is life. Like I said, there's some things we can do to curb this. Number one, by not buying drugs. Which, personally, I think we should legalize drugs and, and if it's coming from across the border, deny that crap. Put them out of business. By not buying drugs and legalizing it. Because remember on how we did the ban on alcohol? All that did was give rise to the cartels and the mobs, gangsters that run the place. Same thing with gambling and all that stuff. And I know certain types of gambling in certain areas are okay with certain tribes and blah blah blah, but at the same time, it's really interesting. But that's it being done to say this. I'm proud to be an American, and I'm proud to be a United States citizen. And just as he was born in Mexico, he can proudly call himself an American. So do you know who you are? Are you an American? Or are you a United States citizen? December 5, 1918 out.